think it was a huge surprise when, hey, Carol Huynh is in the gold medal match.
Long before she was an Olympian and competing on mats around the world, Carol Huynn's childhood had a lot of books and some ball. She was a point guard who could shoot it, but at home, her father was strict when it came to studies and heritage.
I remember growing up, he was always like, remember, you're Chinese, you're Chinese.
2 decades later, she was a university graduate and a freestyle wrestler, back in Dad's homeland for the 2008 Beijing Olympics.
The drought is over. Canada has struck gold. It was a freestyle wrestler from the tiny town of Hazelton, Carol Huynh, who captured gold.
It wasn't until O Canada began to play that the usually unflappable Carol Huynh finally broke down.
I remember my dad saying that, I think he probably had a question about, well, how's it feel to be back in China and then seeing your daughter win for Canada? And he's like, I'm a proud Canadian. I am Canadian. To hear him say, you're Canadian, we are Canadian, and to be so thankful for the opportunities that he and his family have because they made it here to Canada, it's hard to put into words.
Let's go back to the late 70s, not long after the Vietnam War had ended. Vim had moved there from China as a young child and as an adult met Mai Trin, the woman he would marry. They were parents of 2 young children wanting to leave the communist regime in a country still picking up the pieces after the war.
Well, I know that there were probably about 3 or 4 different attempts to escape Vietnam, and one of the stories that they told was they had to hide in a boat that was covered with many other people. I don't know how many others, but they had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old with them, and they had to stay quiet for 3 days. So I just can't imagine how scary that would have been.
The Huynh landed in northern British Columbia. The family of 4 expanded to 7. Carol, the first to be born in Canada. Hoops gave way to wrestling in high school. The sport took her all over the globe. Carol Huynh medaled in every world competition there is, while encountering racism throughout her adolescence and early childhood.
I think for the most part, I ignored it. I think where I grew up, I'd seen racism, and I didn't know what to do with that. It was just a regular part of life.
Then came Beijing, then came our country's first ever female Olympic gold medalist in wrestling. And with it all, then came a platform.
I think after I became Olympic champion, I really took that role model bit very seriously. I had so many people reach out and say thank you. You represented the Vietnamese Canadians or the Chinese Canadians, and that was probably the first time I realized that I was a role model for people who look like me.
Now as a parent, Carol truly appreciates what her mother and father went through to make a better life for she and her siblings. So today, when she sees the hatred toward the Asian community, it hurts even more.
Another vicious attack against a member of the Asian community. A woman hit on the head with a hammer.
The men who attacked an elderly Asian man.
Montreal's Chinatown was hit with a wave of vandalism.
Right now we're living in a very dark time, not just because of the pandemic, but also because of racism.
A lot of some of the more violent incidents were directed at the elderly, and I think that's just disgusting. It's hard not to think of my parents